Alex, that's a very, very pertinent question. And if you look at the Australian economy, and I've commented on this before, it's regarded as a very, very simple economy. In terms of complexity, it's ranked about 70th out of about 200 countries. Now, that's pretty appalling for a developed nation. If you go back to the 1950s and 1960s, and the key word there was manufacturing, we had 25% of the workforce was in manufacturing. Now it's dropped to barely 10%, in fact below. So
is it due to cost? Is it due to power costs, labour costs?
It was to do with those things, and it also refers back to a time where there was quite a lot of industrial disputation. It took us a while to work our way through the IR system, but costs and then gradually globalisation saw us exit manufacturing. And one of the sort of the keynote industries that we exited from was producing motor vehicles. But governments had said, we're moving out, we are tired of subsidising that industry, it's not going to be efficient. But in reality, looking at the automotive industry, they'd failed to read the tea leaves and change the models that they were producing. And if they'd gotten that right, they might still be doing it. But coming back to mining, now the federal government the current Labor federal government has ticked off on the previous government's manufacturing grant scheme. That's not the formal name. So there's recognition by both by the main parties of the need to do more on manufacturing and to use our mining industry as the catalyst for that, which hence we're talking about downstream processing. Just to let the audience know that the federal government has signed off on, I think it was $140 million has gone to a company that is looking at doing mostly batteries or precursor batteries based somewhere in Kalgoorlie. And I know there's an MOU with the likes of Poseidon, for example, to bring in the nickel for that purpose. So we are seeing encouraging signs, and you've mentioned the facility at Kwinana, which with regards to lithium is really, really, really important. But again, I think it is an exciting time, but if you were talking to the politicians, I'm guessing you both say there needs to be more done. And thinking about that and giving you a moment to sort of collect your thoughts, if you had an opportunity to be talking directly with the Prime Minister, what message would you be saying about that? Maybe you go first, Alex.
I think there's a big disconnect in understanding what the mining industry represents in Australia now. Are we a minerals dependent economy? ? As a whole, Australia probably not. As Western Australia, probably yes. Okay. Now we see a lot of, I guess there's always a lot of discussions about that, particularly in the East, and they get money from royalties, which are generally come, principally from WA, right? And there's that discussion in the West about the money going that way. Okay, that needs to stop for a start. I think understanding the process of mining, like exploration, like we're talking about, taking a project into production, taking it through, producing sustainably, producing a product, and not just shipping it offshore, has to be understood.
Adding value.
That's right. So until, and this isn't a knock on any, government or political party, this is just a general comment. I'm just saying that until every part of that chain is understood and what the value proposition is today, what it can be, and what we need to do to make it meet this end product, which is manufacturing, I think we agree with that, the discussion is completely moot. And until we sit down and do that, and governments perhaps consult professionals within the industry who can support that knowledge and help people learn, support manufacturers. Look at Elon Musk, he talks about manufacturing, the way he talks about it and the way he's just gone and done it. Is it perfect? No. But you know what?
He's got the job done.
He got the job done, he produced a product. So I think that's where we need to get to. There needs to be that education piece. We need to understand the whole chain, because it's not, just in the mining side alone, it's extraordinarily complicated to bring a mine into production. Governments need to support that. The logistics, the transport alone, extremely complicated. You need a good road network, rail network. Ever since I've lived in Australia, which is 20 years now nearly, there's been talk about a fast rail line between Melbourne and Sydney. And it's still just talk. and it probably was going 10 years before that or 20 years before that. We need that action, and I think the only way you do that is understanding what the outcome is, and I think that's jobs, that's supporting our economy, and then working backwards from there and looking at every step and every link in that chain and understanding it in detail. That's the disconnect. That's why it doesn't happen.
Yeah, well said, Alex. I mean, we need to diversify our economy, and we've been talking about that for 30 years, and we have not progressed. In fact, you'd arguably say it's gotten simpler, not more complex, which we want. That gives you strength, and you're not putting all your eggs in one basket, and just creates a better social background to everything as well. Noel, did you want to comment, as I say, if we had the Prime Minister in front of us, what sort of message would you be putting to him to support mining industry and morphing into manufacturing?
Look, I think Australia now is at a point where it's in a unique position where we have a disconnect in the globalization process, thanks to COVID and a few geopolitical issues that's happening. So it's if ever there was a time for us to take advantage of nationalising or being a bit more what Alex was alluding to, is that supporting the mine industry is now, right? Where you can say, look, take the rare earth sector, for example. In 2011, China made a little comment like, I'm not going to sell anymore. Now, I just looked at I think it was a 25-year price chart. It just went through the roof, right? And then the next year, the price just dropped and it's flat. Projection to 2030 or something. Fairly flat, but it's still high-ish, right? Now, that tells you the power of what that statement could be. And now we're seeing more people talking about rare earths, only because of what's been happening. Now, this is a time where the government should step in and say, look, let's support this. I mean, lithium industry, we've just discussed, it's WS touting as the place, best place to look for it, etc., etc. We got the iron ore and oil and gas and things like that. But this is probably the time where they could step in and get the most bang for their buck. You could argue maybe 4 years ago or more, the bang for your buck wasn't as high, but now it's really, you got the lithium refinery down in Kwinana, that's step one. And then, but what could you do for the rest, right? So, in projects, and that effect will drive the exploration, the resource industry to no end, right? Because suddenly there's like a big light at the end of the tunnel. So those projects, like people say, it's grassroots. But that's actually, if you find something, the value, the return, it's so much bigger than before, right? We were not needing to put it on a ship and ship it half the world. But it's in our backyard. And the value add from that is another measure that we never seen, right? So I think that message is very consistent with what Alex is saying. It's just that, but I see it's that probably this is the best time if ever you want to capture this. This is the time, right? While everyone's like running around, we got the resource. We're the land of milk and honey and things like that. We should be taking more advantage of it now, right?
Look, if I was looking down the barrel talking to the Prime Minister, I would say to listen to what our two guests have just talked about, and I would say to you, Mr. Albanese, now is the optimal time to focus on working with the mining industry with a view to diversifying into the manufacturing side in order to create a better, bigger and a wealthier outlook for Australia as a whole, with a concerted effort and working in concert with the state governments. You, Mr. Albanese, can make that pathway easier and quicker for the betterment of our society. That's what I was saying.